Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE NXT on April the 12th, 2017. And I was actually thoroughly enjoyed by NXT this week. They started off the show with what had to be probably the best way to get Aleister Black over in any way, shape, or form. He went up against Corey Hollis to begin the show, and it was just a one move match, but it told so much in the end. Like, you have Corey Hollis getting all amped up and everything, but you have Nigel McGuinness like talking about how Aleister Black was just kind of sitting there with just his hands behind his back, being all calm and everything. Is like, you actually saying it's like you actually want to be calm before getting into a match and everything in that sense. And as Corey Hollis just goes in, he just gets hit with the black mass roundhouse kick, and it was done. Just the way that they told it up and everything for, a 15-second match. It was a great way of going and a great way of doing things. It's like, okay, I'm sold even more on the Aleister Black character than I was before, especially with the way that they packaged him up and everything in that sense. They did a really good job here. I'm not going to lie, they actually did a really good job with this. And we'll see where they decide to go with Aleister Black here in the very near future. And, like, what kind of programs is he going to have? Is he going to be doing more of this for his next couple of matches? Or is he going to go into some kind of a program right away? We'll see where they go with Aleister Black. But, yeah, definitely more sold on this guy than I was before. Up next, you had a backstage segment with Ty Dillinger. He was cutting a promo on he was basically cutting a promo on, going up to the SmackDown roster and everything, and then talking about how great that was. But then he goes off and says, "But I still feel like there's unfinished business here in NXT." And that's why he went to, and he says he goes to William Regal, and he says, "I'm going to have a match with Eric Young next week, and it's going to be inside of a steel cage." That's going to be an interesting one. I think this is the second steel cage match that they've done. They did one back with Finn Balor and Samoa Joe to finish off that feud. So they're kind of going back to the steel cage to finish off this feud with Ty Dillinger and Sanity, or Eric Young in this case. So we'll see how that one plays off. And it'll be an interesting one. Good promo by Ty Dillinger here. Up next was DIY, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano versus Dylan Miley and Michael Blaze. First of all, Miley, he's huge. And he looks like he could just dominate everybody. And matter of fact, that's how they played it off in this match, like how dominant he was against DIY and how much they would play it up throughout the entire thing. Because you got, like, even after they tagged out, after he tags out and Michael Blaze gets into the ring, they just play up like both of them were kind of staring at Miley like, what do we do? And the way that they go is like they get dominated by Dylan Miley, but once Michael Blaze gets in there, they kind of gain control, hit the finish after they've kind of gotten Miley off the apron. And I love the aspect of how Tommaso Ciampa, when Gargano goes for the pin, runs up to where Miley was, and as soon as he hears the 3 count, he just backs off. It's like, whoa, okay, we're good, we just wanted to win, and they just go, and they're gone. Afterwards, you have Miley basically looking the most pissed off that he could possibly be, and like, even in the terms of a kayfabe, like, mad, he looked. Like, it almost looked like he was, like, he can convey that general sense of being mad at something and everything in that sense, and he was able to convey that. He gets into the ring, and he just beats the crap out of Michael Blaze and leaves him lying and walks out. Now, they do a little vignette afterwards, and maybe they'll show it next week. But they do a vignette afterwards that showed up on the YouTube channel where, like, Miley is going to be like this semi-uncontrollable monster, but he apologizes. Like, he really doesn't want to do this, but he got angry and just couldn't control himself from beating up Michael Blaze. So that'll be interesting to see how they play off everything with with Dylan Miley, with everything that goes down with him, and if they're going to be using him more here in the near future. It looks like they might be doing that. Up next was a vignette of the empty arena where they had the NXT Takeover show, and it was basically being played by somber music and like piano like soft music, and it was Ember Moon talking about how she was going to, how this was her moment and it ended up getting taken away from her, and how she was going to be the person that does eventually beat Asuka and everything in that sense. I don't know how to feel about this. They maybe it's just the way that they ended up packaging the character in general. You almost felt like Ember Moon was supposed to have a lot of mystique behind her in every way, but she kind of comes off as a more relatable character. And now, don't get me wrong, going up against Asuka, that's probably a better way of going, that you're more relatable versus being a more mystique style character. But it just seems to go against everything that Ember Moon, like the way that she initially came off in every sense. But I'm not going to say that it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. It was just kind of weird with how they decided to take this promo and everything in that sense. And it's really hard. It's really hard to say how you would really feel inside of that one. But it does kind of take her down a couple notches in the sense of, like, that mystique thing is kind of gone from that character by having her become a more relatable being, or more relatable in general towards the general public in that sense. And I'm not sure if that's what they really should have been doing with the Ember Moon character. Like the music and the entrance and everything in that sense. Like, okay, there needs to be mystique behind this, but they kind of make her really relatable as well. It's kind of a weird thing, and we'll see where they go with all this, because you got to assume that they're not done with the whole Ember Moon and Asuka thing, and like I said, we'll see where they end up going with all this. Up next was Ruby Riott going up against Kimberly Frankly, also known as just as in the Indies as just Kimberly. They changed up the name. Throughout, like, Ruby Riott kind of dominates the match a little bit. You have a little bit of back and forth inside of there. Eventually, Nikki Cross comes in. I love the way that she lets herself be known. She just shows up in the crowd and just starts slamming the barricade on the ground to get Ruby Riott's attention. It looks like that's where they're going to be going with Ruby Riott, is that she's going to have a more more of a role going up against Nikki Cross here in the very near future. She did cut a brief promo backstage, kind of just telling her who she was, and again, one of those, like, that promo was fine for what it was, but it's one of those, like, these are one of your first promos on TV. You're kind of telling people about yourself and everything in that sense and what you stand for. And those don't always come off all that good. This one, it was all right, but it didn't really come off all that good in the end. The rest of the match after Nikki Cross gets in there, again, more back and forth between the two of them. And eventually Ruby Riott does take over and win the match with her, like Pele style detonation kick to Kimberly Frankly. It's kind of spelled weird too with that name, but like I said, Kimberly from the independent scene in there. And of course, Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross kind of have a stare down as the segment kind of fades out for that one. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this whole Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross thing. It could be an interesting match. Could be an interesting program, too, if done correctly. So, like I said, we'll see where they go with that one. You have not a backstage, but you have like a performance center style thing with Billie Kay and Peyton Royce again. They were going around doing the whole iPhone thing like they had done with Ember Moon a couple weeks ago. But this time around, they were going around the Performance Center and then going into the training room. They kind of make like aspects of like, oh, we should change all these posters, and they have like a bunch of posters from the alums like Finn and Bailey and a few others in there, and it's like we should just replace that with Billie Kay and Peyton Royce stuff and everything in that sense. You see, like, I think, was it Hideo Itami? I know Cassius Ono was in there. He kind of like rolls his eyes, kind of trying to kind of stay into characters, like what the heck's going on, the type moment, and then they run into Aaliyah and Liv Morgan. Both of them kind of get up into Liv Morgan and Aaliyah's face, talking some like Peyton Royce talking some trash to Aaliyah for how she won the week before, and this eventually leads to to Liv Morgan pushing Billie Kay into the ice bath, and it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny with the whole aspect of the trainer trying to help Billie Kay get out of there and everything in that sense. Just with how they decided to go with this, and it was one of those bits like, okay, they're there talking trash, and they get their upcomings a little bit by Billie Kay having to fall into the ice bath to go along with it. Not a bad way of going. Obviously, they're probably doing this to set up a match between Billie Kay and Peyton Royce and Liv Morgan and Aaliyah, and we'll see how everything plays off in that sense. And this brings us to, in the terms of the matches, the main event of the night, which was Drew Galloway going up against Oni Lorcan, and my God, that was one of the stiffest matches I've seen in a while. In the term, and because of me personally not being able to get to watch a lot of different promotions in general, it's just one of those things you don't get to see that often. Like, I only really have time to watch the stuff I end up reviewing. In the end, I would love to be able to watch more in the sense of everything, but I just don't have the time on that sense. But both of these guys just lay into each other the entire match. Eventually, what was it? Like, towards the end of the match, you had Drew McIntyre going in for what would be like a big uppercut, but Oni Lorcan gets his leg up, and McIntyre kind of goes right by it, and his elbow hits Oni Lorcan in the head, and it does eventually, like, it does actually bust Oni Lorcan open. Like, these two just worked a stiff style in this match, and it came off so good. In the end, it just worked for everything that they were trying to go for in there, and Drew McIntyre does win the match with his Claymore style kick to finish it off after a reverse Alabama slam. Just really good match. Nothing more to say there than it was a really good match between the two of them, and Drew McIntyre does say at the end, like, he could have been on Raw, he could lay the smackdown on anyone. He basically kind of does any of that stuff, saying it's like, I could have been on Raw and SmackDown, but I wanted to be here in NXT because this is the place to be. So feels like that maybe they're going to try to push Drew McIntyre to a really quick program, or like really quickly to a program with Bobby Roode, and see where they go with all that in the end. And again, that'll be interesting to see there. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that. And again, just the match between Oni Lorcan and Drew Galloway was just great to watch in every sense. No complaints there. After this, the end of the show, which ended up being a in-ring segment with Shinsuke Nakamura saying his goodbyes. After, he's going up to SmackDown and everything in that sense, he bids farewell to NXT. He goes out there, gives a heartfelt speech about everything that he had done before, being a champion, being a superstar in Japan, but he ends out calling NXT home. He kind of, like, he was a whole aspect of, the whole aspect was like he cherishes the time he had in NXT, and it was great. He loved the aspect of the crowd and everything in that sense. and he ends it with a "We Are NXT" and does his typical pose to finish it off. Afterwards, the entire locker room comes out. They say their goodbyes to Shinsuke Nakamura. Finn Balor shows up on there as well to go along with it. It was a really good moment, and I like the aspect of just how they went out. You know, paying a bit of respect to Shinsuke Nakamura for what he had done in the terms of what, like, these fans who'd known what he did in Japan and then what he was doing coming into NXT to go along with it and everything. And they made it a big deal that he was leaving. And that was just a good way of going in that sense. And it came off really well in the end. So overall, I thought this NXT was actually kind of good. You had some good backstage segments and everything. They set up for Ty Dillinger and Eric Young next week. The Oni Lorcan, Drew Galloway match was great. The stuff, like the Performance Center stuff again with Billy Kay and Peyton Royce was really good as well. And that in-ring segment at the end with Shinsuke Nakamura was just a really good way of going. A nice little touching way to go off the air for that particular one. So, with that being said, guys, that is my review this week for WWE NXT. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.